One big team. One big team. One big team.
Look at Bonjour. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 66, the third of the nearly 10 times, a tenth of the beast. Episode 66 of Riot Act, the alternative music podcast. Shouldn't bring that up. We're not a metal podcast, especially not this week. I'm Stephen Hill. He's Remfry Deadman.
Hello.
That's how we usually introduce ourselves and how we usually start the podcast. Mm-hmm. And then I do the musicism sting. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Musicism.net are our mates. They gave us all. If you're watching us on the YouTube channel, which theoretically it should be a possibility again quite soon. By now, you'll be able to see all this stuff that we're talking into. I bought this computer. They're mine. The table's mine. The tea's mine. Well, anyway, some of it is what you're watching on. They got us that. Very nice of them to do that as well. What they do is video tutorials for budding musicians. If you're a singer, guitarist, or songwriter, go over to musicism.net. You can sign up for their courses for $9.99 a month. If you're a producer as well, should have said that. Sorry, budding Steve Albinis of the world. And you can get 25% off if you put the code RIOT in capitals in the checkout. Remfry, that was the little sting at the start. I thought I'd get it out, get it done. Nice. Get out of the way, get it done early. How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm starting to feel seasonal. Is it too early
it's
to say
beginning
that?
to look a lot like Christmas.
I mean, I hate talking about Christmas this early.
Yeah.
I'm one of these people who's like, unless it's, you're not allowed to talk about Christmas until December. But I noticed my street put the lights up.
Got them in Selfridges. Apparently the Christmas tree lights are up in many high street stores here in the United Kingdom. Scum. I've been having an argument with a disagreement with my girlfriend about what, she wants the first week of November. Like this week, as this podcast goes out,
well, it'd be today. Yeah,
I'd be putting my Christmas tree lights if she had her way. Are you mad?
American?
No, definitely not. Not in this country. God, not over for Queen country. I will keep this place looking just normal until probably I don't know, the 5th of December. Seems about a normal time, doesn't it?
I mean, I think the 1st is fine, but
probably
whatever.
the 1st.
Yeah,
that's all good. Oh, I should say, by the way, this week we're reviewing new releases from Swans, from Neil Young and Crazy Horse, from Misère, from Frail Body, and from Steak.
Is that your order?
Yep. You all right with that?
No, but it's fine.
Why not?
Well, I'm not going to have this conversation on mic. It's fine.
Yeah. It's because steak number 8, and I didn't realise that. I thought I want to save until the end. Who did you want to do first? Did you want to do Neil Young first?
I think Neil Young. Well, Neil Young's definitely bigger than Swans.
He is. But Swans, for the sort of, I believe our listenership will be more interested in Swans than Neil Young.
Yeah,
well, that's what I think. If we were, say, the Metal Hammer podcast. Foo Fighters are bigger than Sabaton, but they would be more interested in Sabaton than Foo Fighters. Do you get what I'm saying, Remfry?
Yes, fair.
So that's sort of what I thought.
Fair.
Maybe I'm just an idiot and I think that you all like Swans.
I don't know. It's
sort of
fine.
like residual leftover people who are just going, talk about Killswitch Engage, which I would happily do. No. So anyway, that's the order.
Okay,
sorry about that. So what else has been going on in the world? I'll tell you something that's been going on, Remfry. Did you see this? Morrissey's weird, isn't he?
I was aware of this beforehand, but I don't know specifically what you're referring to.
Right, yeah. Morrissey has raised eyebrows once again, to quote the NME.
I'm sorry. I just had a picture of him raising other people's eyebrows. I was like, that is weird.
Yeah. So Morrissey's gig that he did in LA, he did the Hollywood Bowl in LA recently, right? And he's selling signed copies of records.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
You buy a signed vinyl of, the Queen is Dead. Or
do you think he's selling?
I Am the Quarry.
Do you think he's selling the Smiths stuff?
Yes, I do, Remfry, because he's also selling signed copies of albums by the likes of David Bowie, Lou Reed, Patti Smith, and Iggy Pop. Not signed by any of those artists. Signed by Morrissey. You can buy an Iggy Pop album Signed by Morrissey.
To be fair, I'm selling books signed, Terry Pratchett books signed by myself on eBay because I'm really desperate for money. So.
Well, I actually got the entire Terminator box set signed by me, but I signed my name, but I said my name in an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice. Best wishes from Stephen Hill. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this Terminator marathon. Lots of love, Stephen Hill. Come on. So I saw the new Terminator the other day. It's all right.
Oh, well, I was about to say, quick callback to a couple of weeks ago where I said, I'm really excited for the new Terminator. And you were like, you actually said, no, I'm not going to watch it. You've decided that you watched it anyway.
Hey, look, we wandered down to cinema and it was that or the one with J-Lo on in...
Oh, Hustlers? Which
Hustlers. Supposed to be quite good.
Meant to be quite good.
Meant to be quite good.
Based on a true story?
Yeah, must be good. A bit like the Titanic. It's based on a true story, isn't it? Remember when that in Italy, that boat crashed, and in America they reported it as it's like a real life Titanic. Do you remember that? Titanic 2, the Italian job. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But anyway, it was all right. Yeah, quite good.
A little bit more info.
I loved it when Arnie turned up, but it starts quite well, and then Arnie turns up, and it completely goes to shit.
Oh really? That's strange for the Terminator.
I know. Yeah, and you're like, yes, there he is, and then you go, oh dear, I'm not really sure what's going on in there.
Best Terminator since Terminator 2, though? That's what people are saying.
Do you know, I've not seen Terminator Salvation, the one where Christian Bale goes mental.
Oh, it's fucking dreadful.
Yeah, I've heard it's dreadful.
It's dreadful.
Can't really remember Terminator 3, that I thought was rubbish. And I didn't watch Terminator Genesis.
No, neither did I.
So I'm not really the best person to speak to. Okay. It's better than Terminator 3.
Okay. I fucking love Terminator 1 and 2.
Terminator 1 and 2 are very good.
Yes, please.
I even got a little bit like... totes emotion at the end of it, and I shouldn't have done really. I felt like it was a cynical ploy for them to get me all
as totes emotions.
Yeah, it's a bit like that, to be honest.
Something for the YouTube.
Yeah, he did his thumb. Anyway, Morrissey, but Morrissey. So Morrissey's been selling records that he has nothing to do with. He also was wearing a T-shirt which you could buy. You could buy a kind of official Morrissey T-shirt emblazoned with the slogan "Fuck the Guardian." Now, the Guardian gave the Morrissey record that we reviewed, which is called. Oh my God, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But Morrissey's Covers record that came out earlier this year. The Guardian gave it
title. Cover. It's got a horrendous cover.
Yeah, but. The Guardian weren't given a review copy of it because they were so shitty to Morrissey, calling him out on his political ideas before the release. And he's not happy about it. So not only has he gone to... I mean, it seems weird to go to America and go fuck the Guardian when they probably don't really know what that is over there.
I don't know. It was called California Sun.
That's it, California Sun. I thought it was pretty good as well. I gave it a fairly good review.
I thought it was fine. Yes. I don't know. I mean, The Guardian. I think a lot of people will know what The Guardian. I was surprised at how many Americans knew what The Independent was when I worked there.
Really?
When I introduced myself as an independent journalist. Oh God. But that's what I was, so I suppose that's fine. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I think people probably would know, but it's a pretty pathetic thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Mogwai had that "Fuck Blur" T-shirt, didn't they?
Yeah, that was more funny.
Yeah, it was funny. It was funnier.
No, it wasn't Fuck Blur. It was
funny.
It was Blur a shite.
Blur a shite. You're quite right.
Blur a shite,
which is not true.
I would take Mogwai over Blur any day of the week, but you know, I mean, totally different bands. But yeah,
I would struggle to pick one. I like both of them very much indeed. Yeah. But more importantly, with Morrissey, what's this about? Why are you selling why is he selling a copy of Aladdin Sane signed by Morrissey? That's weird, isn't it?
That's insane. I mean, again, I refer to me signing copies of Terry Pratchett's Men at Arms and selling them on eBay. It's ridiculous.
Do you know how much they were retailing for? At the gig at the Hollywood Bowl.
This is in dollars.
Yep, in dollars. I've got the conversion rate if you're interested as well.
$80.
$300. £234 each. You can get a copy of Transformer by Lou Reed with Morrissey scribbled all over it.
Were his own records more or less or the same?
I don't know. I don't have that information.
That's
I think
a shame. That's what people want to know.
300 quid.
It's ridiculous. Silly,
Madness. Absolute.
Just for a squiggle. I mean, well, really, you're paying. I mean, what is a vinyl in America? €30.
Mate,
euros,
I got
dollars.
that lovely copy of Crack the Sky by Mastodon for $15 in America when I was there.
Lovely stuff.
Pretty good, that. Pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I like America.
Yeah, good.
Just generally. Shall we review America?
I've not heard it all.
You know, heard it all.
No, I've only seen a little bit.
I've only heard the beginning and the end.
I've only seen a little bit of it. Also, Judas. So yeah, Morrissey.
Episode title.
Judas Priest and Behemoth have been announced as the other two headliners for the Bloodstock Open Air Festival. I'd say joining Devin Townsend, a UK exclusive and a debut festival headliner performance. I'd say that's pretty fucking strong a set of headliners, Remfry.
That's great. Yeah, super. I think I may well go to Bloodstock next year. Of course, you're not going to go because you are never going to.
If I'm going to one, I'll go to Bloodstock.
Oh, are you going back?
No. I'm not definitely saying. I think if I go to a festival, it will be Bloodstock. But I'm not definitely saying I will go to a festival because I've had a decade of misery.
I think, for me personally, what they have announced with Bloodstock already, they've announced like 24 bands, something like that, is already better than their entire lineup this year, in my opinion. And I suppose, this year's Bloodstock was really not catered for me personally.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people moan about it already. They go, no, it's God, why are there not enough power metal bands on here and blah blah blah.
Glory Hammer are playing.
Well, yeah, I know that, but you know what people are like. They want the band they want, don't they? They just want whoever.
It's very nice seeing Bonjour on your shoulder there, like a parrot.
I like it, like a parrot, or like a sort of like a
pirate,
like a sort of Bond villain cat. And just when we say that's nice, she moves.
She fucks
so
off,
yeah, to look at the lineup, that's Saturday. Behemoth, Paradise Lost, Violence, Ginger,
Ginger Wildheart.
No, Ginger, the Ukrainian sort of band.
Micro, Macro, and all that stuff.
Yeah. And then look at Sunday, Priest, Glory Hammer, Black Dahlia Murder, Life of Agony. Pretty good, isn't it? Diamond Head, Butcher Babies. Maybe not so much. Devin Townsend, Skin Dread. Phil Anselmo caused a bit of controversy.
Yeah.
Phil Anselmo getting announced. He's a racist, probably. Either, accept that and move on. Or
to
don't,
be fair, if we're gonna, have a go at
there's murderers of
Anselmo. Yeah, there's like murders, and also like, I'm not picking on them at all, but Damnation is happening tomorrow, and Mayhem are headlining, and there's been this controversy with MGLA. I don't really know them, but they've been outed as like proper neo-fascists,
right.
And there are talks of people protesting outside Damnation and saying we don't want fascist bands playing. So, I'm in terms of like which is worse. If people were moaning about Phil Anselmo, then I think you kind of have to. It's kind of worse what's happening with Damnation, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess he's more high profile, and people who are more high profile are always going to get more grief, aren't they? It's a weird one with Phil Anselmo because just like his music so much, and people might go, well, "That's not enough of a reason." Well,
look. If I was there, I don't care too much for Philip Anselmo and the Illegals, but they are doing the Vulgar display of Pantera set, aren't they?
Yeah.
If I was there, would I go and see it? Of course I fucking would. It doesn't mean I would like it, because Phil Anselmo live these days is incredibly hit and miss, and you really don't know which Anselmo you're going to get until you turn up. But if he's just playing classic Pantera stuff, like it will be good, won't it?
I think it will be good.
Let's face it. So, if you don't want to go and see him, don't go and see him.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way around that.
There'll be something else on at the same time, probably on the Sophie Lancaster stage, which I imagine.
As I Lay Dying, maybe.
Great programming. That would be.
Yeah.
That would be amazing programming.
Haha, you have to watch somebody awful. I'd still have either of them over Elstorm, to be perfectly honest.
So would I.
Yeah. Anyway, let's do some reviews, Remfry.
We're going straight in.
Well, there's nothing else to do, is there? Is there anything
there's
you wanted to talk about?
No, very, very quickly. I just want to say, lovely man called Devon Osman. Hello, Devon. How are you doing? Explained to me what a mixtape was. This was a bit of a we didn't really know what this was. So, a mixtape is, in hip hop terms at least, a release that heavily uses sampling and is thus released for free.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
So that now makes sense.
Yeah,
So now
a bit like the
that.
Plan B one that I mentioned, where he sampled lots of different.
Yeah, I mean
Okay,
that
that
wasn't
makes sense.
referred to as a mixtape, was it? It was referred to as a bootleg. I'm now thinking the
Bootleg,
mixtape is maybe like a new phrase that, because when I think of mixtape, I think of C90s and recording a mixtape for
You're showing your age there.
someone I'm trying to woo. Usually,
God.
what?
Can't you just make anyone a mix? I made loads of people mixtapes back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I made friends mixtapes as well, but often I was using them.
Particularly
I was like,
people I was trying to win.
yeah, well, yeah, often, sometimes. What's wrong with that?
Fair enough. That's it's romantic.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Don't make it.
Sorry, mate.
Not
I wasn't
so.
making it nasty. I was just like, you and your romance.
Me and my romance. I'm like, Patti, what's his face? Take
McGuinness?
me out. McGuinness, there we
Yeah.
go. Let the trinket.
There's not a lot
see
of
the-
romance on Take Me Out.
No,
Remfry.
that's true, actually. I don't know.
There's not a lot of romance on that show.
Also, just wanted to very quickly say the response we had to the clipping record was massive. I think.
Yes, and I knew it bloody would be as well.
Oh.
I was convinced that would happen because there have been a few people that have been like, nah, don't get it. And that's fine.
That's fair enough.
I thought there might be.
It's
Obviously,
clearly not for everyone.
Yeah, it's definitely wasn't going to be for everyone. I wouldn't have thought, but
You could argue, I mean, I think it's
you were pretty positive about it.
I think it's a brilliant record. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great record. I was about to say I've not returned to it, but that's because some of the releases we're doing this week are really heavy. I probably will go back to it though, actually, at some point.
I mean, I like it will surprise no one. I bought it on vinyl. I put a thing up on Instagram saying
yeah.
I bought it on vinyl. And actually, I wanted to say this. I bought the vinyl, and I was kind of annoyed by this because they've taken the interludes out. And I think the interludes are really good. They've left bloody piano burning in one whole fucking side of the double disc is piano burning. You're like, oh yeah, no, leave that in, definitely.
Take burning piano or piano burning away.
Piano burning.
Take piano burning off. That's ridiculous.
I would have taken piano burning off. Wow. I mean, I wouldn't really. I just would have made it like, why the interludes for me? It just goes straight into nothing is.
I'm assuming. I mean, actually, we're about to talk about a record where the CD releases and the vinyl releases are different anyway. So So I imagine that will be due to space on vinyl and space.
I
on
guess it
CD.
is, yeah. They'd have made piano burning 14 minutes of piano burning rather than 18.
That's the thing. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I mean, I don't think the interludes are essential to that record, but it is a shame not to have them.
You really do notice them when they're not
you?
there, though.
Right,
Yeah, you really do. I mean, I did. I enjoy listening. It's weird because obviously you should enjoy listening to something on vinyl more than you should on MP3 or whatever, but I actually...
You must.
Well, it's of a higher quality and caliber a thing, mostly.
That's up for debate, but yeah, let's not talk about that now.
Yeah, no. But you would think something like that would benefit from being on vinyl a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
But actually...
As you would the record we are going to talk about, which is truncated on vinyl.
But, yeah, without those bits, it feels a bit short.
Strange. Okay. Well, really just to say thank you for everyone who contacted us about clipping, whether you liked it or not. And also thank you to Mr. Duck for suggesting it on the old download
Yeah, good
forums.
suggestion. That's become a good thing. All right, anyway, now we'll do some reviews. And we will start with Swans. Leaving Meaning is the 15th studio album and the 5th studio album since the 2010 Swans reunion of from the New York Noise Terrorists. I say that, although I do feel that Swans are slightly mischaracterized by the media somewhat.
To be honest with you, they're genreless, aren't they? Swans are swans. Like, it's so different. I mean, I've heard them being referred to as post rock, which isn't entirely inaccurate. Noise rock, sure. Jazz,
Industrial, avant-garde, jazz.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's all right and it's all wrong.
Yeah.
Is what I would say with regards to Swans.
Yeah.
But an enormously, I mean, quite possibly, we're a relatively experimental podcast as these things go, and Swans are quite possibly one of the most experimental bands we will feature on the show. Do you think that's fair?
I think so, yeah. I think when you look at the breadth of their career, well, I mean, I was going to ask you about this.
Hello.
Actually, as we kind of kick this review off, because, as I said, 15 records. This album features, amongst others, many collaborators, as Swans usually have many collaborators. Anna von Hauswolf is on this.
Yeah.
Ben Frost is on it as well. But if you can keep up with who is in Swans at this point, then, well done. Because I certainly fucking can't.
There is a touring lineup which has remained constant for a couple of records at least, I believe. But
if you try and sort of get together with and think of everybody that has been in Swans ever.
Well, Wikipedia has tried, as it always does. You know those charts that they have at the bottom, the Swans chart, which like says who's been in the band.
I bet it looks like massively
It is an entire screen. So, well, it depends on the screen you're looking at it, but it's massive. It's ridiculous.
I can imagine it is.
It's very amusing.
So what's your relationship with Swans and Remfry? Because I think not only are they an experimental and difficult band for us to be chatting about, they're one of those bands, I feel, who just the mere mention of their name is intimidating.
Yes. Swans are a band who I have strived to get into probably since the resurgence. I didn't really, since the revival, they really reformed. Reformation, thank you.
Song went up on MySpace. When they reformed, just
really?
Nothing. Suddenly, hello, there's a new Swan song on MySpace. That's how they did it, on MySpace.
Oh, legends. And in fact, it wasn't the first one. It was the Seer, which came out in 2012, I think, where people really started, saying this record is amazing, and like all the things I was reading about it, I thought, oh, that sounds like a bit of me.
Yeah.
And I tried listening to the Seer to give you an idea. Double album, a lot of Swans albums, most of them at this point. Oh, I wouldn't want to go on record as saying that, and we are technically on record, but a lot of them.
You can use the word lengthy.
Well, a lot of Swans. I'm prepared to say a lot of Swans records are double albums, including this one that we're about to talk about. The Seer is 2 hours long. It features songs which are around 30 minutes in length. I think the title track is 32 minutes or something like that. And I tried, and I sort of could see that it was quite unlike anything else, and I could see sort of why people thought it was amazing, but it was like, I see the world that you're creating, Mr. Gira, Michael Gira, the main man behind Swans, but I'm not sure if I want to be inhabit that world, to be totally honest. Then To Be Kind came out 2 years later, another double album, and I remember listening to it in the offices of The Independent, and it gave me a migraine. Honestly, it made me feel sick to my stomach. I remember it so vividly. I remember where I was sat, and it just, because it was streaming on probably NPR or something like that, and I was like, right, I'm gonna give this another go. And I just felt ill listening.
So this is a funny little story. That came out in May 2014, that record.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And I had just started doing the breakfast show on Team Rock Radio. And
don't tell me you played Swans on that show.
Can you imagine? No, because Just a Little Boy was on it, and I was like, well, that's only 11 minutes. Like, I can play that, right? And I remember one of the first meetings I had, I was like, do you know what would be really cool? Playing new Swans album was out. And everyone sort of went, oh, okay, yeah, cool, all right. And then I was like, so you know who Swans are, right? And they were like, no, we don't actually know. And I was like, they're like a legendary, but they're like, oh, they're like they're like Megadeth. It's like, no. And then when I got it, they were like, absolutely, you can't play this. And it was like that. At that point, I was like, oh. This isn't going to be quite what I expected it to be, is it? That was like an early indicator of how difficult that year was going to be.
Yeah.
Can I play Swans at 7 o'clock in the morning? No. Oh.
I'm gonna try.
I quit.
I'm gonna try and put Swans into my next DJ set. That'll be
You're
a
a fucking
challenge.
lunatic.
So yes, so to be honest, Swans are a band who I feel like there's been a few of these, a band who I've admired from afar, and I can see why people love them, but I've never found my way in. And
Right,
considering that the Seer and To Be Kind in particular, I didn't even bother with the Glowing Man, because after To Be Kind, I mean, even thinking about the cover of To Be Kind makes me feel a bit sick. I just can't do it again. And then when I saw there was a Swans album coming out, I mean, I did bring this in, I guess. Well, I mean, I think we both would have anyway.
Yeah.
But I think, considering the sort of show that we are, I think it was vital that we cover it. But I will say this: there was a little bit of like, oh damn, we've got to do that Swans record, just because of how the last one that I listened to made me feel 5 years ago.
Yeah, I can understand all of that.
Yeah,
I mean, so you're saying did you not really try with them until the Reformation?
Not really, no.
Okay,
they pretty much passed me by until the Reformation.
So to give you my perspective and my sort of relationship with Swans, they were a band whose name I'd heard bandied around quite a lot during the kind of mid to late 90s when I started getting into heavier music. And the Neurosis split with Jarbo was a way in. I think probably is a way in for people of my age, was a way in for quite a lot of us.
Which, by the way, either has just been re-released or is about to be re-released, and is well worth your time. It's very good.
Yeah, it's really good.
And Jarbo used to be a member of Swans.
Yeah, she used to be a member of Swans. She was a sort of keyboard and vocalist, and she's got an insane voice.
She's brilliant.
Yeah.
She's fantastic.
And has not really been part of this Reformation.
No, although she does guest on one or two.
Yeah.
I think she guests on a song on the Seer, from what I recall. So she's not in the band, but she's guested once or twice.
So that came out, and I was like, I should try this. I should check this out. And I bought, I think, so you got to remember, this is probably like 1999, 2000 era we're looking at, that sort of era. The new metal years is what I'm saying, basically. And I was like, I'm going to go out and buy one of their records, because you hear about how they're the most fucking mentalist band ever. But this was obviously, again, not only was this the new metal years, it was obviously you have to find this in a CD shop years as well. And in Reading, there's a little shop in Reading, and I found The Great Annihilator, which is their album from 1996, and I bought that. And I have to be perfectly honest with you, I went home and listened to it, and I went, fuck knows. I haven't got a fucking clue. What is this? Yeah. And it just sort of sat there gathering dust. And I kind of forgot about Swans for about 10 years. Just didn't really pay that much attention to the sort of the thought of it. I was just like, nah, don't get it. Don't really understand it. Which is weird, actually, because going back to that record, I know it's not really considered one of their best records, but it's actually I think it's a good record. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I do like that record, and I quite like that period of them as well. But yeah, it was only probably, maybe sort of 7-8 years later, when, as I was talking before, I was downloading on my mate's house, and I used to put everything on this massive iPod, and I heard Cop. Obviously, Cop is this hugely influential record, and is sort of routinely characterized as a heavier than everything record. Like, I think Terrorizer said it was the fourth heavy, like Terrorizers know their stuff about heavy music, fourth heaviest album all time as nominated by Terrorizer. Really? Every time they put in these, like the loudest bands ever, the heaviest albums ever, the most extreme things ever, blah, 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 blah. Swans 99% of the time will come up.
Yeah.
Cop 99% of the time will be the album that gets brought up. Yeah. But for me,
it's nihilistic, isn't it?
It's very nihilistic, yeah. And it's a far cry from what we're about to talk about, I think. And for me, Swans are kind of like, and Cop is kind of comparable to Scum by Napalm Death. Because I think Scum, whilst I can understand just how influential it is and just how kind of brilliant it was for the time, and just what a kind of like, mad shot in the that record was. At the same time, it's far from their best.
It's not the record you go to.
No. I think even to go to From Enslavement to Obliteration one album later, I think is a clear step up, to be honest. But Scum is the record people go, oh my god, when I heard Scum.
Yep.
People may say that about Calculating Infinity with the Dillinger Escape Plan. They may go, yeah, okay, it's the headfuck record, but it's not actually better than Option Paralysis or Ironworks or whatever.
Yep,
I personally disagree with that, probably because I was there at the time, and I think that's probably, that context will probably have a lot to do with what your favourite record from these very, very extreme bands are.
I agree.
I appreciate Cop, and I can see exactly why it was so influential, and, you know, it's proto fucking everything, isn't it? Proto industrial, like you say, proto noise, proto post metal. What, you know? You listen to Street Cleaner by Godflesh, and you go, okay,
there we go.
Yeah. But when the Swans 2010 reunion turned up, I think there was a few pieces in the subterraneous section of Metal Hammer that, and a lot of the reviews probably done by our joint friend Jonathan Seltzer, who is a fucking brilliant writer and an oracle in this type of music, and is a massive fan of Swans. That really,
I would say Dom Lawson as well.
Dom
is a massive Swans fan, and I remember when the Seer came out, seeing I think one of his metal sandwiches where he was going on about it. But yeah, certainly.
Yeah. And you know, I remember reading about My Father Will Guide Me Up to the Rope, Up a Rope to the Sky, and that being a comeback and people being really, really excited about that, and me listening to that record and going, this is very, very different from the two eras of Swans from what I've heard before.
Yes. And
kind of like, for me personally, that record, The Seer, To Be Kind, which I know you said gave you a massive headache. I kind of don't think Swans have really put a foot wrong since they've reformed in 2010, which is quite a rare thing. I mean, I personally, To Be Kind, I think thus far is probably the best. I really do genuinely like that record, and you're right, it's tough.
I wouldn't want to. I would never. I heard it once.
Yeah,
and it put me off so much that I didn't go back to it. But that's not like a review. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going, it is shit.
Yeah.
I'm saying it put me off so much that I just couldn't return to it. And I think Swans are one of those bands that, like, you're not meant to get it instantly, are you? No. There might be people who claim, oh yeah, I loved it, Swans from the beginning, but they're one of these bands that you kind of need to ingest over a period of time, I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretentious and wanky, but we're talking about quite a pretentious wanky band.
Yeah. So, and the result of that is I find myself not really ever thinking about Swans for longer than about, I don't know, a couple of months. And then I find, like, what I've found with their records is that they're a band I think you have to seek out and go, right, I'm going to get in this and I'm going to like it. You can't just go, oh, hey man, there's a new Swans record out, I think I'll have a little listen to that. Maybe I'll come back to it in a few months, maybe I'll give it a couple of listens. You either go, all right, turn all the lights off, like take all the distractions away, and get yourself right into that headspace where you can listen to it. And then after a while, I mean, to be fair, I do like the Glowing Man, but I probably only listen to it maybe 5 or 6 times ever.
Yeah.
Like,
Glowing Man was their previous record.
Yeah, which is from 2016. Mainly because I just was, what was I doing in 2016? I was getting a full-time job and I was getting married, and it wasn't really the sort of, it wasn't really the time to be listening to a Swans record, to be fair.
Yeah, you're not, it sounds like a weird thing. You kind of have to be in the mood to ingest it, if that makes sense. You have to be in the mood for it. And so I think Swans are one, like, maybe when I don't know what I was doing when To Be Kind came along, but I do feel like that I was in totally the wrong headspace to listen to it, which might have contributed to my
I think maybe for me, I was going into this radio station and I was playing pop punk and new metal and
you
like,
needed an antidote.
And then I'd go home at 10 in the morning and I'd just right, well, I've got loads of music to listen to. And I really got into that and Ready to Die by Electric Wizard, the Electric Wizard album that came out last year, that year, which is, like, even by Electric Wizard standards, very, very difficult record to listen to.
It is.
And I loved it. I just was like, this is the shit that I love, because it was just such a lovely, antidote to what I was doing during the sort of working hours. Anyway,
I think it's fair to say that just to pick up on what you were saying previous to that, Swans are basically the antithesis of how 99% of people listen to music now.
Yes, I think that's true. Like,
they're not throwaway. You have to concentrate on it. You can't listen to it through a fucking phone or a laptop speakers or turn all the lights out. That you're not going to passively get into Swans. You have to work at it.
And I feel like, I actually heard Dan from Conjurer being interviewed, and he said it took him so long to get into Swans. And I've heard lots of things. I was actually watching something on the Needle Drop channel where somebody went, nothing happened. Someone tweeted him and said, everybody's waiting for something to happen in Swans music, and it never does. And that to me is like, well, it's just not, you're not in the right frame of mind and the right headspace.
I think the Swans music, a characteristic of Swans music is it's enormously repetitive a lot of the time, but it's repetitive in a minimalism sense, in that there are subtle changes happening. But you need to sort of attune your ear to them, I suppose.
So I guess that's probably enough context. Got a favourite record? Do you have a favourite Swans record, Remfry?
No. I struggled. I've just struggled with them too much.
Fair enough. I would say To Be Kind is a good record that you should go and listen to. Love of Life from 1992. I actually have a little soft spot for that as well. Okay. I think it's really good. It feels like a bit of a weird one to pick, but anyway, that's how I feel. But which brings us on to Leaving Meaning, which came out last week, and we have deliberately left it a week because after all the heavy duty lifting that we had to do last week, I think adding this to the mix as well would have been difficult.
I wanted more time with it as well.
Yeah, I wanted more time. Yeah. And I have to be honest with you, I'm really, really glad that we gave ourselves an extra week with it.
As am I.
Because
my review last week would have been very different.
Yeah, I think it's definitely benefited me as a listener from having an extra sort of 8-9 listens to this record. Do you want to kick this one off, Remfry, or do you want me to start?
No, I'll kick this off. So everything that I've just said about Swans, not being able to get into them before, I'm really, really, really happy to say that finally I feel like this record has enough light in it for me to be able to step into the world and be like, okay, I get it a bit more now. The first couple of times I listened to it, well, probably the first time I listened to it, I still found a lot of it very oppressive and tough. The Hanging Man I really struggled with on initial listens. And Sunfucker, possibly the best title of the year.
Great song. What song?
Sun as in the
S-U-N.
The big ball in the sky. Not
Ian Watkins.
So pleased you said that. But I think there's a modicum of light at the end of the tunnel with this album. It's by Swans standards, it's a slighter album than normal. It's still 93 minutes long, but that makes it a little bit easier to get into, certainly than the last couple, I reckon. And it also just feels... Lighter isn't the right word, but not as sonically oppressive. There are moments of sheer beauty on this record. I was really surprised. There's a 2-minute sort of opening track, and then what's the first track proper?
Annalie.
Annaline, yeah. I was so surprised when Annaline came in, and there's just this, like, Michael Gira. He's just... He almost sounds quite frail. There's like it's actually quite a beautiful song, and beauty isn't something I'd normally associate with Swans.
Yeah, there definitely is. This is why I said at the start, I feel like they're slightly mischaracterized because I don't think this is. I've read reviews of this going, it's a whole new direction for Swans, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure if it's an entirely whole new direction, because I think the idea of Swans is this dark, bleak, super loud, oppressive, like hate-filled thing. I don't actually think that they're always like that, but yeah, predominantly there's a hell of a lot of that. And, you know, like obviously they deserve that, but certainly I can understand why you would be a bit like, oh, when this record kicks off.
Yeah, it feels like there's more. Well, I guess all I'm saying, like, there is light in the other Swans records that I've heard. It's just that it feels like there's more in this one, and hence it made it easier for me to get inside it and enjoy it more. I think, you know, the Hanging Man is then the third track. It is far more kind of like the Swans that I'm used to hearing, and on first listen I was like, oh, okay, here we go. Now we've got the repetitive chant, like droning dissonance, this shamanistic performance, and it's oddly uncomfortable and yet strangely alluring at the same time, which I think is how you can kind of sum up Swans. I mean, I'm almost tempted to like coin the term car crash music for stuff like that. I don't know if that's like the best term for it, but it's gross and yet you can't look away, kind of thing. And Swans do that really expertly. And the Hanging Man is a song, like, I can't think of a song this year that I started off disliking and then liking. The disparity between how much I disliked it the first time I heard it and how much I like it now, I think is the biggest for any song this year. I now think it's really good. It is enormously repetitive and, as I say, shamanistic, and it basically does the same thing for 10.5 minutes, more or less, with subtle changes. But there's something entrancing about it and hypnotic about it.
That's what it is for me. I think that they have this ability to suck you in. Yeah. And you just have to swirl around with them. And it is, sometimes it's quite a record that can make you feel kind of nauseous. I mean, you mentioned Sunfucker as which I think is an amazing, brilliant song. But at the end of it, you know, you're looking at just under 11 minutes of song, which, you know, isn't, as you mentioned, for Swans, is not a ridiculously long song for Swans by any stretch of the imagination. But you know, when you're getting that kind of 3 minute long booming drums that just continue to kind of swirl and march, and you get Michael Gira just kind of, he doesn't even sing. I mean, I think this is the thing with Michael Gira, is that it's not even really singing. It's almost like kind of yarling, you know, the kind of yeah. And there's so much of this record that reminds me of Gregorian chant. I mean, my mate, I was playing it at work, which is really ridiculous. And my mate, who likes sort of Five and Elton John and Robbie Williams, was like, "What's this fucking monk music you're listening to? It's this chanty monk music." And obviously, you know, like, he's not got a lot of context for what Swans are. Yeah. But I did go, I mean, yeah, you know, like, it's kind of fair comment. There is something kind of medieval about ritualistic medieval, you know, kind of shamanic is a great word, to the way that Swans, it's a bit like that bit in, it sounds the way that bit in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is filmed, you know, mularam shuftide, like that bit, you know, when and the camera's going everywhere and you're like, whoa. Obviously,
is your Halloween costume sorted?
Yeah, mate. Oh God, I've got to tell you what I'm going as for Halloween on Thursday. No, I'm just going because I'm going to when I put it up on. Okay. It's funny. Actually, it would have happened by now. Drew Barrymore in Scream. The best fucking costume. Casey Becker.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, just need a blonde wig and a cream top and jeans and a big phone and some blood. Done. Anyway, Swans. So, you know, obviously it's not as Hollywood as that. And again, you know, we mentioned the film Irreversible a hell of a lot, but I think because when the camera work on that is much more, I actually think this is, for Swans, a fairly easy listen.
Yes, for Swans.
For Swans, let's be clear about that. It's actually, I was surprised at how much of it I found
really palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are songs where sometimes there's whole songs where there isn't any dissonance or anything that's difficult at all. And yeah, I think this is the album that I kind of needed to get into Swans. I mean, I now feel like at some point I'll be ready to go back into the back catalogue and try other Swans records as well, because I now feel like I have this starting off point with Leaving Meaning. I mean, to talk about Sunfucker just a little bit more, it begins with that really dissonant, horrible sort of drum stuff, as you say, but then halfway through it turns into an ass shaker of a song, like really like properly danceable, almost like devilish rock and roll. Do
you know what? I think there's that point in the album. There's a marked shift for a few tracks.
I agree.
There's a marked shift,
which is the halfway point.
Which is the halfway
it's the point where you would change disc.
Yeah. So Sunfucker actually on the vinyl closes that disc, and then you would put in Cathedrals of Heaven.
Yeah.
The nub, It's Coming, It's Real. I mean, the Cathedrals of Heaven is great, but the nub is 12 minutes long. It's got somebody called Baby D, not Let You Be a Fancy Baby D. It is Baby D, who was a vocalist from the sort of late 60s and early 70s, a kind of sort of female pop star, so I believe. I've never heard of her before, I have to fess up. But I just had a quick look at who she was quickly. And the nub has 3 minutes, which again, in Swans terms, is literally fuck all, where it just kind of builds with that little piano part. It's really fucking cool. And then she comes in and it just feels like, I don't know, like you say, a sort of a psychedelic 60s freak out. And there's also bits on this record around that period, like It's Coming, It's Real, which I think is amazing song.
I agree.
That is amazing. That might be the best song on the record, and that might be, if you're going to listen to Swans and go, give me a song to listen to, that might be a song that you could go, you should listen to this, and then it's probably not going to. If that's too much, maybe don't bother with anything else.
I think It's Coming, It's Real is one of the songs where there isn't any dissonance and you can kind of listen to it. I mean, I think it was released as a single.
It was released as, it was the first song released, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a brilliant, it has those kind of female oohs in the background, which is basically the basis of the song. And then
it again, I mentioned with Nick Cave, I mentioned David Lynch.
Yeah.
And it's got a kind of cowboy Lynchian vibe to it, I think, that song.
Yeah.
It's really kind of lackadaisical and hip swingy, and it's got a kind of, maybe not cowboy actually, maybe kind of more like gangster noir. Do you know what I mean? It's got like a real just, it's cool fucking music. Do you know what I mean? It's
cool
like,
fucking music.
It's like when the cool guy from the film walks into shot.
Yeah.
Like the detective, the gangster, the cowboy, whoever. When that guy walks in, this is the kind of music that he struts along to. And again, not strictly something that you would associate with a band like Swans to do kind of...
Not at all.
But this is I think this is a very, at points, this is quite a cinematic and soundtracky sounding record.
Yeah.
Morricone, Sergio Leone, there were bits in that where I was like, oh, this is a kind of spaghetti western twang to some of this stuff.
Yeah, there's like little glockenspiels used on it quite a bit, like on the title track. And the title track might be my favourite, actually.
Really, yeah, that is good.
Which is like, it has these sort of waves of piano that come in and out of it, and then Guy Gira's intoning this thing about, I cannot see it, I cannot feel it, but not, I can feel it but not keep it, I can touch it but not hold it, I can be it but not know it. We never know what it is, but it's sort of beguiling the whole time, and just builds into this. I mean, again, like 11-minute. I mean, it's just a brilliant song, and 11 minutes just seems to go incredibly quickly. I mean, there's some people who listen to it and think that it's the longest 11 minutes of their life, probably, but I'm finding this record. It feels shorter with every listen, and it feels like easier to get into, and it's that thing that we've talked about quite a lot recently with like albums that just hypnotize you, and it's not going to hypnotize everyone, but like it just does become very sort of becomes a very hypnotic 93 minutes. And I don't think it's perfect at all. But for the most part, it's really nice to... There's this band who everyone has been wanging on about, who I feel like I should be into. For years and years and years, I've tried to for almost 10 years, I've tried to get into them. And now finally, I feel like this is my way in to get into them. And it's the first Swans record that I feel like I've appreciated everything that Swans have done, but I've never really liked anything that Swans have done up until now, which is quite nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling a bit like I'm going to start to sound like a broken record with what I've been saying over the last few weeks, because we had Nick Cave a couple of weeks ago, which I think is just fantastic record. Yep. Obviously last week I went bananas for the Clipping record. I like Swans, right? I like Swans, and I have to kind of huff myself up to listen to them usually, but I do like them, and I do get something. The early stuff that I was talking about earlier, I would very, very rarely sort of put that, the kind of pre-Jarbo stuff, I would very, very rarely put that on, if I'm being completely honest. But post
you're
that...
Mr. Sadist.
Yeah. But post that, I really do like most of the things of theirs that I've heard. And particularly, as I said, since they've come back in 2010, I think they've been very, very consistent. I think this might be my favourite thing they've done.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
and I think the reason for it is that this is a record which it still scratches that itch that Swans give you of being unnerving and hypnotizing and swirling. But it's actually, for me, for Swans, I feel like this is an enjoyable record to listen to. Yeah, fuck it, an enjoyable record to listen to.
In the context of the music.
I want to listen to, it's not like, when you want to listen to something, you will listen to it. And like I say, I don't think that a lot of this stuff that they've done is completely brand new and it never existed before. No. Like, it's definitely not. They've definitely had moments of subtlety and, like deep subtlety and, kind of calmness in their music before and quiet, but they're not as tonally consistent as they are on this record. And I love the fact that this record feels pretty tonally consistent throughout, that you can put it on and you can listen to the whole thing and it goes by really, really quickly. Pretty much all of the songs are really good on it, and they give you something. It's a different experience of listening to Swans.
Yeah.
I really, and the more I listen to this record, the more and more and more I like it.
Yeah.
To the point where at this point I'm like, I fucking love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really great.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really, really good, and I'm just relieved that finally, as I say, I've finally found a way in. And if you're like me and you have struggled with, this is a good entry point, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
15 albums in, you know, but I felt like cheated is way too strong, but the manner in which people were going on about the Seer and To Be Kind. And I just felt like there was no doorway in. I just felt completely lost with them. And that's not the case with this. And now that I have this and I've kind of, this is permeated around my skull, I feel like maybe in another year or two I can approach the Seer again, or To Be Kind again or something.
They become better songwriters as well.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, again, to sort of, if you were to go back and listen to Cop, or do you know what I mean, to listen to even a lot, their kind of early 90s stuff, right? I think there are ideas and songwriting ideas on this that they probably wouldn't have been capable of back then. It's a fucking great record, this is. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And it is rare to get 15 albums down the line and to be like, here's something which is... It's what I was saying about Refuse last week. This the ability to kind of grow old gracefully and go, well, it would. I very much doubt they could make Cop again. Do you know what I mean? And they haven't tried to, but they found another way of harnessing a similar levels of power and similar levels of menace and threat, and they haven't lost. Like, this still sounds like a Swans record.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? You could probably play stuff from this record back to back with you know, just before they split up in the 90s, some of that, you know, that era stuff. And you'd go, yeah, I could definitely see it's the same band. Definitely.
Yep, definitely.
You might struggle if you were going to go right back to the 80s stuff and go like, oh, this is the same band. You'd probably go like, oh, they've changed, haven't they? But definitely, you know, I think there's a through line.
It's a natural progression.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
This is very, very good, this record. Like, very good. Just so we're clear. Very good. I'm not going to say where it's going to be in my...
but you're saying it's going to be in there, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm not saying that it's going to be in there. Probably will be, but yeah, but I'd be pretty surprised if it wasn't, to be honest. But anyway, there you go. Swans. Remfry, you got a Swans album you like?
Yeah.
I just assumed you would be a massive fan, to be honest.
I think this is part of my frustration with not being into them. People assume that I will be because I like avant-garde, long, weird music.
You do.
And Swans tick all of those boxes, but they are just so...
They're dense.
They're so dense,
dense.
so oppressive that I've just never, as I say, I just never found the route in. But this is my route in, and it's exciting now. I go, oh, brilliant! Now I might be able to check out some of their other records and get into those as well.
Yeah. So there you go. Leaving Meaning by Swans is out right now, and if you have ever thought, I want to listen to that band Swans because everyone bangs on about them, but I'm struggling, then, you know,
this is the one.
This is the one to go with, I would say. And it's that good, which is why we put it as lead review as opposed to what we're about to talk to now, which is talk about now, not talk to. We're going to talk to this record. That'd be mental. No. Neil Young and Crazy Horse, Colorado. The 39th record from the legendary Canadian singer-songwriter and his crew. His first album since Psychedelic Pill in 2012. I think both of us...
First album with Crazy Horse.
With Crazy Horse.
Oh, yeah. He's done like 3 or 4 albums.
Yeah, I should have said that.
Because Neil Young, to be clear, he's 73 years old, Neil Young, and he still shits out albums at least once every 2 years.
Yeah, he does.
Which hence him having 39 albums, which is insane.
Yeah, it's a difficult amount of records to actually sort of contemplate how you would, you know, when you consider he probably, when you and I were born, he probably had 10, 12 albums out.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, I think...
And that's just as a solo artist as well. That's
Yeah.
not even counting kind of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and all that
Yeah,
other stuff
exactly.
as well.
I think in terms of bands, artists that we have reviewed, I think he has the biggest back catalogue. Like,
so, yeah.
you know, even things like Springsteen. I mean, Western Stars was his, 18th, 19th album?
I think it was, yeah.
I mean, that seemed like a lot, but yeah, Neil Young pisses on that.
Young.
The only artist I can think of who has a more vast back catalogue is Frank Zappa, I think. I mean, there probably are. This is off the top of my head. There probably are other ones.
Grateful Dead?
Yeah, all right. I said off the top of my head, but yes, Grateful
No, I'm
Dead.
just adding one. I wasn't being a pedant like you. I was just trying to join in the conversation.
Yes, Grateful Dead, yes.
So, Remfry, your relationship with Neil Young, I'm going to say straight off the bat, my first, my kind of, I think we might have said it before when we talked about Mirrorball.
Oh, yeah.
Philip Cook, my mate Gwillem Cook, the Cook family, big friends of mine. Phil Cook, a.k.a. Strongy. Strongy Cook, that's Gwill's dad's name. Big fan of Neil Young. Used to, like, whenever we'd go round to Gwill's house.
You were going with that.
Well,
There was a lot
here's
of
the thing:
cooking
we go round Gwill's house, and Phil Cook would inevitably end up in his own little study area, listening to Neil Young. And I think we snuck in there once when he wasn't about and pulled out. What record was it? It was one from 1994. I have said this before.
94.
We pulled out Sleeps with Angels.
Yeah.
From 1994, and I had a little listen to that, and that was the first time that I'd heard Neil Young. And it's got a song that I called "Piece of Crap" that we liked. It was a piece of crap, that which is all about sort of, you know, commercialization and stuff, as is Neil Young's way. And after that, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of, you know, I just thought, who's this old dude?
Yeah.
And actually, I was like, he's pretty fucking cool, this guy. And therein was the kind of the start for me to go and become a sort of Neil Young. I wouldn't say it took me a little while to become a Neil Young fan, But I was always like, I respect that man.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people probably won't be surprised to hear that my route into Neil Young was Pearl Jam. There is a reason why there's a Pearl Jam record right up there this week.
He begged.
I mean, Pearl Jam's relationship with Neil Young and vice versa is like they're kindred spirits in so many ways. I think Eddie Vedder inducted Neil Young into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
Pearl Jam.
Eddie Vedder's inducted about 15 people into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he did the Ramones as well, didn't he?
That's the only other one I can
It's
think
because
of.
he's a great orator, my friend. That's
is,
why. They go, Eddie, would you like to come back? And he'll be like, yes.
I thought he was a great orator. He truly is. Eddie, you're a great orator. Do you want to say anything? Yes. You had one job, mate.
Pearl Jam regularly cover Neil Young. I mean, the first Neil Young song I ever heard was probably Pearl Jam covering "Rockin' in the Free World," which they end many of their sets with, probably a third of their sets with.
I remember when they brought that out when I saw them at the O2 last year.
Yes,
I thought it was over, and then suddenly that kicked in, and I just was I'm so happy.
Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful song.
Great.
And Pearl Jam's version of it is just fantastic. It's almost become Pearl Jam's song now. Like, it's just brilliant. And then
Steady, mate. Strong, you'll be around. It won't fucking stand for that.
Poor
him. He's got no idea what you're getting into.
I mean, again, I'm plucking this out of my arse, but at this point, I wonder if Pearl Jam have played that song more live than Neil Young has.
Surely not.
I don't know, but I put it to the world. We'll try and find out next week. So naturally, I was inclined as to find out who this man that the members of Pearl Jam referred to as Uncle Neil was, and
the Godfather of grunge.
Godfather of grunge, exactly. I quite like grunge. I was like, I better find out who this guy is. So I bought. I didn't know whether to go with a Neil Young album or a Crazy Horse album, so I bought both. I bought Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere and After the Gold Rush, both at the same time. And just really fell for those records, particularly After the Gold Rush, which I think is just a beautiful album, and it's probably remains my favourite Neil Young album.
Got it there on vinyl.
Absolute.
Sounds fucking incredible.
Yeah, it would sound good on vinyl.
Yeah.
It's an absolute. It's just a beautiful record.
It's brilliant.
And then
brilliant.
And then from that point, it's like, where do you go? Because he has such a vast back catalogue. You're like, where do you go from there? So I just picked up stuff that was Pearl Jam related. So like Pearl Jam covered Fucked Up quite a lot, so I picked up Ragged Glory from 1991. Whatever album, was it Freedom that Rockin' the Three Worlds on? I think it's something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
I probably own, of the 39 records Neil Young's released, I probably own 10.
It's more than me, mate.
Right.
Yeah, it is more than me.
And those 10 vary. I mean, there's probably, of those 10, there's probably a couple that I've only ever listened to once or twice.
Yeah.
But then an album like After the Gold Rush, I've listened to hundreds of times. So I have an odd admiration. Neil Young's a weird one for me in the sense that, you know how I moan about bands who release basically the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think Neil Young has a couple of different iterations of himself. There's Neil Young with Crazy Horse, which is very different to Neil Young solo. But it is difficult to argue that this album, Colorado, sounds like a lot of Neil Young and Crazy Horse albums.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It sounds so much like classic Neil Young.
Yeah.
I mean, it's frightening.
I think with Crazy Horse.
With Crazy, okay. But it sounds so much like you would expect a Neil Young Crazy Horse album to sound like.
It could have been recorded in 1975.
It could have. He sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
All the guitar tones sound exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, it really does, whether you think is this a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I guess it depends on how much you like Neil Young, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
it sounds so much like classic Neil Young. Like it is like a time capsule that is from 1974 that has just been opened last week. It's pretty mad, that.
Yeah, and there's something that I admire in it. I mean, this album was recorded in, 11 days up in the Colorado mountains. It's done almost entirely live. And I think as a man who goes on and on and on about how I like live music and live things over sort of pre-recorded stuff. I mean, that's usually in the case of actual seeing bands live, but you can tell. Take a song like what's the mega long one? She showed me love. So when Neil Young plays with Crazy Horse, there's always at least one song which is them just like jamming for fucking ages. It's become like the thing now, and it's track 2 on this one. It's 13 minutes and 37 seconds. I mean, first of all, I'll say I was surprised. Those songs always outstay their welcome.
Oh, absolutely.
Always.
Yeah.
I will say, with regards to She Showed Me Love, I was surprised at how long I enjoyed it for. It wasn't until like the beginning.
I'm surprised as well how long you enjoyed it for, no matter how long you say, to be honest.
Well,
but, yeah.
it was actually the 9-minute mark.
Really?
Which was the first point where I went, looked at the clock and go, okay, this could be over now. And it is it's remarkably repetitive. Not repetitive in the same way that Swans is repetitive, but But I think
it feels like a jam session.
It feels like a jam session. I think the thing that I like about it though is it sounds like a band playing live in the room.
Yeah,
and you so rarely hear that on records these days. Like, not to sound like an old man. I mean, I just did, but. It's that is so rare. It's so rare to hear a band in a studio just playing all live together. There's one point where the drummer, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but the drummer just stops playing during that song, and then like as if the song's finished, and then a couple of beats later he's like, oh shit, I start up again because we haven't finished. And there's something about Neil Young that I kind of admire, that he's willing to just be like, we're just capturing a moment in time. It doesn't matter that there was a mistake there.
Yeah.
We're capturing the fact that there was a mistake there.
Yeah.
I think if you enjoy that ethos and that approach, then you'll get a lot out of Neil Young. But at the same time, I would understand why someone would be like, why don't you just do it again then?
I agree with you. I mean, it's a tough one.
Yeah,
to review
it is a
this
tough
record.
one. It is.
Because for me, personally, I love that it sounds the way it sounds.
Yeah,
I really do love the way that it sounds.
Same.
So live and so kind of raw and so just sort of untouched. It feels like even sort of pressing play on your phone, you get kind of dirty fingers just from listening to it. Do you know what I mean? It feels like soot comes out of the speakers while you're listening. Do you know what I mean? It's a dirty sounding, raw sounding.
I'm glad
heavy.
I'm glad you're saying it's of the ground and of the earth, because obviously that is a theme of this record.
Yes.
As well.
But no, I do like that. And I like how it sounds, and I really appreciate how good Neil Young. I was gonna say how good Neil Young sounds. Neil Young has, let's be perfectly honest here, Neil Young has a distinctive voice,
Absolutely.
which some people will despise and some people will put up with. And
some people love Neil
Young's
Young's voice.
some people do love Neil Young's voice.
He's not a great technical singer.
He's not a great technical singer. He is a very, very... okay, this is what I think. I think it helps Neil Young that he's never been a great vocalist, meaning that he can still sound how he sounded back then, because he never really was, technically speaking, a particularly good singer. He's got a very nasal, whiny voice, and that is quite off-putting for a lot of people. Like I say, I've never loved his voice, but I think he has performed songs that are so good, and he has brought his own unique style to those songs in such a way that I have kind of grown to not just accept but enjoy Neil Young when he's great.
A great example of this, I would say, I totally agree, by the way, a great example of this is track 2 of After the Gold Rush, which is the title track, isn't it? Am I going mad?
Yeah, I can't remember. Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
You look that up very quickly while I was going to say this. But that song, it is, yeah, the title track. So the title track of After the Gold Rush, it could be performed quote unquote better by a vocalist who had training and so on and so forth, but no version is going to be Neil Young's version, because there's something about the fact that he's not a great vocalist which actually makes that song better.
Yeah,
that's a good example.
Yeah. So he can still kind of sound almost, like I say, cryogenically frozen in time.
He sounds great for a 73-year-old.
Yeah, he does. And he sounds exactly like Neil Young. He doesn't sound like a bad croaky version of Neil Young. He sounds exactly like Neil Young.
No Bob Dylan.
No
crap here.
And Bob Dylan's a great example of someone who, again, has Dylan got a great voice? Definitely not.
Absolutely
like he's written some absolutely staggeringly brilliant songs, and he has performed them in his own unique way, which means those songs are great. Yeah. But is he a great vocalist? Not really. And you kind of either have to get past that and learn to find a way to kind of love it. Otherwise, go and listen to fucking Mariah Carey or something.
Yeah.
But at this point, I mean, like I say, with all that taken into account, I don't care much for this record. I have to be honest. I don't care much for it. And it's kind of all the things that you've said that I think are kind of positives on it are great, but it's quite hard to explain exactly how I feel about it, really. I just don't think the songs are that good.
Oh, really? Okay.
I just don't think the songs are up to it much. I think there's a few bits, like you say, the kind of the Extinction Rebellion, the album is kind of writ large all over this, and there's a few lines in it where Neil Young can be a beautifully poetic man, but there's a few lines in this that that I saw old white men crushing mother, all that shit about.
He's very on the nose with his lyrics. Yeah. But actually, I read the Guardian review of this was really good. Alexis Patrice, I can't pronounce his surname, but he was sort of saying it's actually sometimes the lyrics feel a bit basic, but the thing with Neil Young being on the nose is Neil Young has such a vast audience that even though he is clearly a very liberal left-wing kind of dude himself, he has passed, I don't think all of his audience are.
No.
So it's actually pretty cool that he is so kind of on the nose with his message and is going, no, this is what I'm saying and you can't misinterpret this kind of thing. And I think when you're preaching to people who don't necessarily think that, I mean, there was a lot of controversy with I think it was his 2004 album, Living with War, because that was very, very anti-Bush. And there were loads of protests outside, his concerts from like his long-term fans and stuff like that. And that's, there is an argument to say, isn't that more punk than liberal left-wing punk people singing to liberal left-wing punk dudes?
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I admire that in a sense. I think there's a couple of songs on here which are really good, although funnily enough, it tends to be the ones which are more Neil Young rather than Neil Young and Crazy Horse.
Such as?
I think Green and Blue is a beautiful song. Is it Green and Blue? Yeah. Green is Blue, sorry. Green is Blue. This is really stirring, beautiful ode to planet Earth, believe it or not, which I think could have fitted on After the Gold Rush quite naturally. And just to give an idea of the on the nose lyrics, we heard the warning calls, ignored them. We saw the weather change. We saw the fires and floods. We saw the people rise divided. We fought each other while we lost our coveted prize. There's so much we didn't do that we knew we had to do, and we know why green is blue. And it's simple and on the nose, but it's actually quite nice. I think.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a pretty good song.
That's a good song.
That and then Shut It Down comes afterwards, and that's kind of a ludicrous song.
Shut It Down's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty ludicrous, but I kind of, for some reason, it's so ludicrous that I don't mind it. Later on, there's one called Rainbow of Colours, where it sounds like something from Sesame Street, I think.
Oh, I like Rainbow Colours.
Yeah, I don't mind it. No, I don't mind it. I was just like, wow, this is almost like a kind of children's sort of I was just like, he kind of sounds like something from Sesame Street.
Were you about to say like a nursery rhyme type thing?
A little bit, yeah.
But a lot of Neil Young's stuff is nursery rhyme-esque. Like, Neil Young is not a complex...
No.
Like, he doesn't write complex songs. So many of Neil Young's songs are 3 chords in the truth. Like, loads of them are. Like, Rockin' the Three World's 3 chords, isn't it? Yeah, it's 3 fucking chords. Yeah. Like,
and
almost the whole thing. Well, Rockin' in the Free World. Well, that's about communism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, and Rainbow of Colours... I mean, the message in that is brilliant. There's a rainbow of colours in the old USA. No one's going to whitewash these colours away. I mean, that's direct to Trump, like, fuck you and your racism, you twat. I really like Rainbow of Colours. I think Rainbow of Colours is classic Neil Young and Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
And there's a few moments on this record where you're like, yeah, you could slot that into one of the classic albums and it would fit really, really well. It's just... As I said at the beginning of this review, I have 10 Neil Young albums. And I don't really know why I should add this one to my collection.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I don't think there's enough on it to make me go, oh, this is one that I need to add.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think that's probably... I mean, I have less Neil Young albums than you. And I'm still like, I don't know that there's anything on here that I would necessarily... go back to, or even that were I to make a playlist of great Neil Young songs, I'm not even sure if anything on here would get into that.
I would add
Green is Blue.
I'd add 1 or 2 songs from
Green
this
is Blue is
album, yeah.
probably the best song on
really
it, I would say.
Yeah.
And actually, like, because I was quite surprised when thinking, maybe it's just because I was so shocked at how much like a Neil Young and Crazy Horse record it sounded like. I thought Think of Me was pretty good because the first track.
Oh yeah,
because I was like, wow, this really sounds like no, it's been a while since I've listened to new Neil Young material. So the fact that it sounded so perfectly evocative of his past work kind of took me by surprise a little bit. And I did find myself going, oh, great. Wow, listen to this. He sounds really fresh. And, it's got all the hallmark, this could have been, like you say, plucked from after the gold rush or whatever. But I don't know if that was just the sort of shock of that or if it's a good song. I don't mind it as a song. But overall, it's not great, this record.
Generally, he does... Yeah, it's not great, but it's not terrible either, I don't think. I mean, I've seen a couple of reviews where I'm like, my goodness, really, this got 5 stars in The Independent, which is way OTT.
Never would have happened under your watch, Remfry.
No, absolutely would not. The Guardian review that I referred to earlier, summed it up really well for me, and I really wanted to find my own way to say this, but I'm just going to have to... It's summed up so brilliantly. Their last paragraph says, the end result is another Neil Young album to add to the pile of the not bad and the okay he's amassed over the last decade, while a steady stream of archive releases highlight how great Neil Young can be at his best. As good as any artist in rock history, and certainly better than this. And I think that sums it up pretty perfectly. And this is the thing, there are these archive bootlegs. I've referred to them on the show
You did,
before.
yeah, when we were talking about Roy Buchanan, you mentioned.
Yeah, they keep going through the archive and releasing these amazing official bootlegs, most of which are fucking awesome. And I would probably recommend you go to one of those before getting a new Neil Young album. He does still occasionally bring something out. La Noise came out 2011, 2012, something like that, and that was a really interesting experimental odd. That's a really good record, and that is one that I listened to. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this. But it's quite rare now that he does that. But then 39 albums in, come on.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's fair enough.
It is fair enough, yeah.
You
can't argue with that, can you?
You can't at all.
For it not to be, embarrassing is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and this record is not embarrassing.
It's not
I don't
embarrassing.
think.
Yeah, it's just you don't need it. I think that's the other thing. With it being 39 records, if you're sitting here and going, I've never listened to Neil Young, maybe I listened to it like you know, this is
Get After the Gold Rush or
Harvest
or Zuma if you want Crazy Horse or is Freedom Crazy? Rust Never Sleeps is great live album. Mirrorball, yeah, fantastic record.
I mean, I'm going to even chuck in just the first one I heard, Sleeps with Angels, I think. And
I think Sleeps with Angels is a fair one. Yep.
Yeah. So there you go. Neil Young's Colorado, Neil Young Crazy Horses Colorado is out right now. It's all right. All right, Stake, Critical Method. This is a band of Belgians. They used to be called Stake Number 8. I used to like them very much. I didn't realise that they had changed their name. So this is sort of their fifth album. Sort of.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they would definitely consider it their debut. But so, that's interesting. I was sort of ho-hum about Stake Number 8, I have to confess. But I've not heard loads of Stake Number 8. How does this differ to Stake Number 8? Because it's very different, right?
No, I wouldn't say it's hugely different.
Is it not?
I wouldn't say it's hugely... Okay, so 2011's All Is Chaos was an album that I really, really liked. That's a second record. They were like 16, 17 when that record came out.
Yeah,
and
really
I think
young.
they got quite a lot of hype from me on the old Metal Hammer podcast at the time. They had that song on it, the one that goes, banana, banana. That song is Dickhead. You stupid motherfucker, you can suck my dick if you don't like my shit. Banana, 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 banana. Do you remember that song?
No.
Fucking great song.
It sounds like a System of a Down B-side.
It's good. But
just the way that you do it, I'm sure it's wonderful.
But what Stake Number 8 had, which I thought was really, really cool, and they didn't really follow it up after that record, but at the point of what I thought was cool they had was this kind of sludgy metal, stoner metal riffing, like one of the heavier bands from the sort of stoner metal scene. I probably won't say Mastodon, but you know what I'm talking about. Something like Red Fang, like that, mixed with the wiry punkiness of a late 80s sub pop band.
Yeah,
so a Mudhoney. So like Mudhoney and Red Fang together. I thought that's what Stake Number 8 were all about. And so, you know, yeah, to be fair, this doesn't sound like that.
Although actually those are bands and those are things that I reviewed this for Metal Hammer to be a
prick about it.
Not necessary to throw my cards on the table, I was going to say, or something along those lines. And Stake Number 8 were never a band that I disliked, but a band that for whatever reason I just never really got into. So when I was like, okay, this is Stake Number 8, but you know, renamed, I wasn't that excited about it. And then it came on, and I was like, this is fucking awesome, because it is a sort of strange. This album specifically feels like a strange mix of sort of Queens of the Stone Age,
got that,
with Sleep, with a bit of Deftones, with a bit of Mastodon, I think, here and there, and it just seems to take from so many different things and like sound a little bit like them for a bit and then jump onto something else and sound totally different. And I just it's quite a difficult album to sum up, I think.
It is. Yeah, and I think they're a fairly like eclectic band, and I kind of think, to be honest with you, I particularly from that album that I was talking about before, All Is Chaos, I think they always, you know, they did always have elements of all that in them. I think this record definitely, it's been such a long time since I listened to that record all the way through. I can just remember that Banana song,
which I'm now going to check out.
Oh, it's wicked! It's so wicked. But yeah, I think this is definitely a sleeker, slicker, more professional, more mature, grown up, more expertly crafted, and better sounding record.
Is it better? Full stop.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it is.
Because that's what I said in the.
But hey, listen, listen, it is. But then I've not been back to that record.
Sure.
This is from my memory. This is a record that I love. The kind of punky energy mixed with fat fucking riffs.
Yeah.
Big, like, hairy ball riffs, but done in a really sort of wild, aggressive way. Whereas this has certainly got a lot more craft. It sounds cleaner, but it still sounds very heavy as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
But it still rocks like a bastard.
Oh yeah, definitely. And when I say cleaner, only because everything was bleeding out from that first record. Whereas this, you can hear, you know, there's a hell of a lot of that sort of Nirvana-y squalling feedback. And
Yeah.
again, that's not totally been taken away from this record. I just feel like you can pick out individual parts a lot easier on this record.
Yeah.
And I think...
you can hear the intricacies of it.
Yes, and they've gone and toured with Mastodon and with ISIS, and I believe they've done shows
Dillinger
with
Escape
Dillinger, and who else have they done shows? They've done shows with, I was reading a thing saying they've been off on tour with all kinds of bands over the years, which I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. Was Sun? They couldn't have played with Sun, surely. Is that my imagination?
That'd be an interesting
It
bill.
may well have been completely have been my imagination. Mastodon, Dillinger, Deftones. It's got here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, which all of that makes sense. And yeah, you know, at 9 tracks.
It's 8, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah, sorry, 8. Yes, you're right. Sorry, I'm miscounting. 8 tracks. It's not a long record.
No. But it feels stuffed with ideas, doesn't it?
But it's got a hell of a lot of ideas on it.
Yeah.
And actually, when you say, I mean, I put Queens of Stone Age down, I put Mastodon down, I didn't put Deftones down, although I can definitely see it.
Hawkeyes?
Hawkeyes. I mean, I actually, there's one song on it called... Torch, yeah. There's one song on it called The Human Throne, which is unlike any... That is definitely very different to anything that they did previously. You know, that feels like a big... it sounds like a big 90s Brit rock song. I think that sounds like if 3 Colours Red had signed to Relapse.
Yeah, which sounds brilliant.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. I really love this record. I really like it, and I think if we are treating this as a debut album, and I know in theory it's a bit of a cheat if it is a debut album or not, but if we are treating this as a debut album, that it's
I don't think we can. You can't change your name and just is the Cult Dreams album a debut album?
No, true.
I suppose you say Chicken Hawk is not the second. You know, Ideas is not the second Hawkeye's album.
I kind of do see Ideas as the second. Yeah. All right. Well, in a pretend world, if we were calling this a debut album, then I'd say it's one of the best debut albums of the year. Can we say that or not?
I mean, they've not even barely changed the bloody name of the band. Like they've just taken.
Steak is spelt differently.
Ooh, yeah. You take Kids off Code Orange Kids.
Yeah,
Code
sure.
Orange
You
didn't go like, oh, that stuff doesn't
All
exist.
right, fine. Well, look, the point is it's a great record.
It's a good record, yeah. It doesn't diminish the fact that this is a good record, Remfry. I don't want to sort of make you think that I'm saying that at all.
I mean, it's like a journey through all of my favorite bands. This album, basically, like so, Devolution. Could like that's the 6th track. It could end any other album. It's like so massive and epic, and it basically sounds like Caius slowed down and playing through My Bloody Valentine's pedal boards. Yeah, you know, and it's just like this massive lumbering kind of thing. And then, as I said, you know, I've already mentioned Hawkeyes and Torch and Queens of the Stone Age and Deftones and it sounds like all of these bands and none of them at the same time. And then you've got Dosed Up Salvations, which is the track immediately after that. Which is the best Cavell Attack song that Cavell Attack never wrote, which then has a bridge that sounds like Mike Patton. You know, like it's just like, but it evokes all of these bands without directly ripping them off, and yet it's very much its own thing. And it almost sounds like it has so many ideas going on that it would sound a bit mixtapey, but actually it flows incredibly well. It's about 39 minutes, 8 tracks, as you said. And it just, I just think from start to finish, it's just a really, really fucking great record. Like, I just wanted to bring it in because I didn't know if people would know about this band or not. They're playing The Social in London next month, which I don't think is a massive venue at all.
I don't know anything about it, to be honest.
But it feels like to me that I mean, some of this stuff is really abrasive and heavy, but the more kind of, certainly that Queens of the Stone Age edge to it, which I think there is quite a lot of. I
Quite
think,
modern Queens of the Stone Age as well.
Yeah. I think the lighter moments from this album, I'm not suggesting this is going to happen, to be super clear, but I think the lighter moments of this album in a slightly different world could be on the radio.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's really nice to get a melodic alternative rock band who properly fucking rock, but have a sense of melody as well. I mean, there are times where they are just screaming their nuts out.
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, I think even to bring it to kind of more contemporary bands, there's times on this record where, I mean, we reviewed Dinosaur Pile-Up and St. Pierre Snake Invasion in the same week. And there's points where you go, this could have gone on either of those records.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Less annoying than Dinosaur Pile-Up, but yeah. No, but yeah, that's a very astute and absolutely, yeah, very good point. Like, and yet it sounds cohesive and really, really well put together. It's on Hassel Records, and I think Hassel have history of doing these weird, slightly off-kilter bands that are just excellent.
It's been a while since I've heard anything from Hassel Records, to be honest.
Yeah, when I think of Hassel, I think of like James Cleaver Quintet and stuff.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly. That was the sort of period, and they came out around that period as well. And I had that. It was a little period where Hassel were releasing loads of really, really cool bands. I remember being like, "Fucking hell, this is a really good label." And then they've sort of disappeared. I don't even know who's on it now. Do you know who's on it? No. Do you want me to look it up?
Yes. Hopefully this will be some sort of resurgence. I mean, like if you take I need to mention the last song, Eyes for Gold, 7-minute closer. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, that's wicked.
And there is a riff at the end of it, which again could have been on, I think, early Queens of the Stone Age. This particular riff. And the riff is just played the same way over and over again, but the drums keep doing a different pattern and like making it go into like different sort of time signatures and all sorts of different things. And it is incredible what he is doing. He's just playing different drum parts all around this same riff. I could listen to that bit over and over again and still not be able to figure out exactly what's going on and what he's doing. But there are so many cool bits on this record. I really love it. I mean, it was, I thought it was imperative that I bring it in for Riot Act because it feels like a band who...
They tick a lot of boxes for us, yeah, definitely. Totally. I like this record a lot. It's really good.
Good.
Hassel, I've got Brutus.
Oh, of course they do.
Casey, Glue, don't know them. Lonely the Brave, I didn't actually realise they were still going, but he's got a good voice, that guy. He's a really good. Max Raptor, they've been around for a while. Pace Shifters, Pagan, Petrol Girls, Foxjaw, again, like quite a lot of Press Club, Steak, Swedish Death Candy, don't know them. Wes Meets West, and the Joy Formidable.
Ah, the Joy Formidable.
Yeah. So that's
still a pretty good roster, though.
It's a good roster, that.
Yeah. But Hassel are really good. Like when Hassel get it right, they're really good at picking bands which are kind of alt rock, but really at the same time really difficult to pigeonhole. And I think they have done exactly that with this, with Steak.
Well, I mean, when you think like how we spoke about, I think the second episode we ever did was we talked about Pagan. We've spoken Pagan. A lot about Foxjaw and Brutus in this past year. Yeah, that seems like a good place for a band like this to be.
Definitely.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's Steak's debut album. It is not Critical Method. It's the 5th album from the band formerly known as Steak No. 8 and now currently known as Steak. And if
it was a debut, though,
well, it's still good. Get over yourself. Let's move on. Une Misère. This album is called Sermon. It is a debut. This is a debut album.
This is a debut album
from the Icelandic metalcore crew. You happy with that? Come on.
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, yeah.
What? You like it,
well,
don't you?
Well,
which is why you won't admit that it's metalcore.
No,
Because it is.
It definitely has a place. Okay. There's a lot of metal in it, and there's a lot of hardcore in it.
Right.
When you see them live, they're far more like a hardcore band, I would say. They're far more chaotic and all over the place. I would also say that metalcore has this connotation these days of sort of a formulaic kind of heavy verse, melodic chorus thing, which is starting to be phased out a little bit.
I agree with that. I agree with the idea of when you say, if you were to go into a rock bar or a rock club and someone said, what sort of music do you like? And you said metalcore, they probably wouldn't immediately think of this.
Yes.
They would think of something very different. But as we are keen to point out, or at least I am very keen to point out every time we talk about metalcore, I don't think it's a genre that is... Do you know what I mean? If you just took the worst of every genre or the most popular of every genre, like Snot are a new metal band, and they are. Like, I hate all new metal bands. It's all formulaic. It's rubbish. All right. Well, what about Snot? What about the first two Deftones records? What about the first two Static X records? What about, Demanufacture by Fear Factory? What about the first couple of Korn records? Every genre can have great bands. And yes, this is more metallic hardcore. I prefer to use the term metallic hardcore, which to me is, that's what people were using when we were talking about, all those kind of early Revelation records and the Poison the Wells of this world and all those sort of bands.
I think this has more to do with
that
Botch, Poison the Well, than it does with Killswitch Engage, Atreyu.
Well, definitely more than Atreyu and probably more than Killswitch Engage. But I think actually we speak about Darkest Hour and we speak about Unearth, and you go, I think there's enough.
Darkest Hour, okay.
I think there's enough from bands like Darkest Hour and Unearth, and certainly, that Renounced record that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, Misery Signals, those kind of bands who are definitely, even, and I don't really like them as a band, but even early 18 Visions, Walls of Jericho, shit like that. I mean, Walls of Jericho are probably a bit more of a hardcore band, but certainly very, very metal in places. I
don't think those comparisons are totally off. No. The reason, there's been a lot of hype and excitement around this band. I think basically, I saw them at Roadburn. Was it this year or the year before? I can't remember.
It would have been, was it because old Thomas Lindbergh?
Yes, it was last year, yeah. And they played like 4 sets at Roadburn, and I kept missing them all weekend, and then I finally saw the last one, and I was really like, holy shit, this is going to go off. So basically I've been keeping a beady eye on them for a little while, and the stuff that they'd released on Bandcamp previously, they'd released a few singles and stuff, and I thought it was really, really, really interesting, a really interesting mix of several different styles of heavy music, but blended together in a very, very interesting, non-formulaic. I suppose when I talk about metalcore in a disparaging way, it's because of the formulaic nature of a lot of it. I think Une Misère showed signs of being a band who would do that metallic hardcore thing, but not in a formulaic way. I think what we have with Sermon, the debut album, I think that is true for a large chunk of it, maybe 2/3 of it, I would say. I'd say it's non-formulaic, in my opinion, and feels like it goes in directions that you're not expecting it to go in. There are bits of it which I will say this: the first time I heard it, I was a little bit disappointed because I built them up so much in my head, and I thought we were going to get something really quite different. And instead, what we have is a very good version of something that's sort of already going on at the moment. I see a lot of like Code Orange in this and stuff.
There's some like electronic parts in there, isn't there? There's a little bit of like throbs of electronic noise in there. I mean, well, then to put it into kind of context of probably where it sits, because obviously we said metalcore, but hardcore's not a bad shout, really, when you think of how heavy a lot of the new hardcore is. If you're looking at bands like Harm's Way, if you look at a band like Knock Loose,
Jesus Peace
as well. But I probably wouldn't put them in the same category as something like See You Space Cowboy, or Vane either. Or we did the number 12 Looks Like You recently. Probably not that either. Or
it's not as
wildly experimental, and eclectic, and there are bits in it. I think for what this is, like, to be honest with you, Remfry, me and Remfry, we talk out. We do talk outside of this podcast sometimes about music as well. And we were chatting about this last week, and I said I'm really surprised that you are that keen to bring this record in, because I would have happily just gone, nah, it's all right, like, it's a good metalcore record. But
I've done that. A large part of the reason I've done that is because of the hype that's around it. Because in certain circles would be like, why aren't you talking about the Ian Misère record? Yeah,
and to give you like a little bit of context, like, I think I probably just said, it's just quite a good metalcore record. This gets better with every listen. I reviewed this for Metal Hammer, and I gave it too low a mark. I hope the guys at Hammer don't mind me saying that. I hope they don't mind me saying this, because I know sometimes Merlin's gone, why are you saying that, you idiot? Like, why are you making this review irrelevant? But I think you can sort of change your mind about music, like, a little bit down the line.
But music's fluid, and the way that we react to it is fluid, and you know, we were talking about Swans earlier today, and I'm hoping that soon I will go back to the Seer or To Be Kind, and it won't make me feel physically ill.
So you know, all I can say is the review that I gave it for Metal Hammer at the time that I gave it was absolutely my opinion at that time.
Which is all you can do.
I do, kind of a month later, I do enjoy it more than I probably made out in that review.
Do you want to say what you gave it in Metal Hammer?
I gave it a 6 in Metal Hammer. Yeah.
A
sort of above, you know, that's above average. I thought this is, you know, I thought I've heard this stuff a lot. And again, I was, you know, I'd heard of them, and I was a bit like, I kind of expected something a bit more than that. So maybe that played into it a little bit as well. And I wasn't initially totally grabbed by a lot of it. I think actually,
just to defend you ever so slightly here, in my opinion, this album at its worst is a 6. But at its best, it's a very high 8. I would say maybe pushing a 9. And which means that overall it's probably like a high 7, low 8.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, to be perfectly honest, I would now at this point, I think a 7 would have been about right. Like, I don't think this album is amazing. I actually like, weirdly, everything you've said about all the stuff that you're like, when it's good, and, you know, when it's not being formulaic and blah 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 blah. I actually like it when it just gets down and just fucking chugs, and it is like, hey, a metalcore chug, and I think they're fucking good at doing that.
Ooh, I mean, it didn't quite agree on the. Okay, yeah.
So it didn't quite excite me in, you know, I actually find some of the electronic bits a bit. What's the song that's got this sort of
the drum and bass?
Yeah, the drum and bassy sort of. Offering? Is that it?
No, Offering's really, really short.
Yeah,
I think it's Beaten.
Is it that early on?
Yeah, I think it's track 6. It starts with these drum and bass elements, which do sound very eyeless Slipknot, to be fair. And then, but a minute later, the track, it practically disappears for a bit, and then just sounds all wispy and strange. And then the band start up again, and it turns into this really noisy thing before ending with the drum and bass thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a brilliantly crafted song. Do you not agree?
I think the bit in the middle is really good. I think the electronics sound a bit dated.
Yeah, I will concede that I do think the electronics sound a little bit dated, but I love the manner in which they bookend the song. they begin with the drum and bass bits and they end with the drum and bass bits. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds, that song, and it goes through so many different... This is what I mean by non-formulaic. You don't quite know where it's going to go next. And as I said, about a minute in, maybe 1 minute 10 seconds in, the song just stops, and then there's just this whispered sort of howl thing.
Yeah.
And then it starts...
Certainly, there are bits that pop out at you that you don't get on the first, second, or third listen. That take a few more listens. So the title track, for example, the drum, the snare, the sort of the hit of the snare on that, I at first just go, oh, it's a metalcore riff, and that's it. But then when you start listening to the pattern, that the snare, he's got a really, I can't quite explain it, but it's a really weird, like sort of pull away from the snare that he does, and it's actually when you really listen to it and you notice that, you're like, fucking hell, what's he doing? Some like Thomas Hacker stuff. Do you know what I mean? Some Danny Carey, like metalcore Danny Carey drumming, like where he's doing this weird snare part. And you can't sort of unhear it after. Once you've noticed it, you can't sort of unhear it. Yeah. And you go, cool, that's really interesting. I get it.
I think this is the thing. It in my opinion, a lot of modern metalcore doesn't take from a very wide pool of influences. Yeah. Whereas this, it feels like takes from, a lot of the influences it takes from are extreme forms of music, but there are bits of hardcore, black metal, drum and bass, noise rock, synthwave, black gaze in this, and it's a 36-minute record, and they're all done very expertly. It takes that journey through those, fucking using journey again, but it takes that journey through those styles in a very effective way, much like the We Lost the Sea record, in that it doesn't ever feel like it's jumping to a different bit. This is the drum and bass bit, this is maybe the drum and bass bit is probably the exception to that rule, but I think it flows through those genres in a very hybristic, liquidy manner, which I think is very difficult to achieve for a band who have been together for 2 years. And whilst when I initially listened to this, I guess because my expectations are so high, I was a little bit disappointed. I think, like you say, the more you listen to it, the more you realise that actually there's a lot of really, really good stuff going on with this album. And for a debut as well, I think is important to remember. And also, the fact, as I say, they've been together I think they formed 2017. I might be wrong on that, but 2016, 2017, it's really, really impressive. There are some things I'm a bit disappointed with. When I saw them, I was like, oh, wow, this is a hardcore, metallic hardcore, whatever you want to call it, band with 3 guitarists in. It was really... And live, you couldn't... it was just sort of... noise. You couldn't really hear or distinguish between 3 different guitar parts. I was really excited at the prospect of hearing a metallic hardcore band with 3 guitarists. And I have to say... If you didn't know there were 3 guitarists in this band, you probably wouldn't realise that. So that's a bit of a disappointment for me. And there are parts... it's interesting. I'm sorry to... I mean, I don't know if you were saying that the title track is a good song or not, but the title track is one, for my money, bar that drum bit. I do know what you mean, but it's one of the most meat and potatoes songs for me.
Yeah, it really is. But that's what I thought immediately.
Yeah.
That it definitely is. But I was like, oh, this is metalcore. But then, I think it's cool. They've got the drum. That's a really cool.
That drum part's wicked, yeah. And I, to be honest with you, I think this album takes a couple of tracks to really get going. I think
definitely the second half of it is good. I think.
Yeah, I think the first couple of tracks, mainly the first 2, if I'm honest, but the first couple of tracks are really straight ahead, meat and potatoes, the sort of thing that I don't tend to be into. Yeah. And I don't think it ends very well either, to be totally honest with you. But the stuff in the middle is really interesting and really good. And like I say, it's a debut record. If this is, again, imagine if this is the worst record they ever do, then that's going to be a pretty fucking great band, I think.
Well,
Hence
I mean,
yeah.
They could be good. I mean, like, weirdly, despite all that, my favourite bits of the record are when you just get full down. I mean, I put When They Go Full Thy Eyes Murder, just to annoy you, really. Who aren't even a fucking metalcore band. Actually, but there are bits where they do just go like, gadala, 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 and when that, but maybe because, it doesn't have, it's used fairly sparingly on this record.
There are Thy Art Is Murderisms in it, absolutely. I think maybe the thing that, maybe this is a good way to clarify, like, what I mean, like, when I put a Thy Art Is Murder album on, for example, it's quite a good example. When it comes on, initially I'm like, oh yes. My problem with Thy Art Is Murder is it stays the same for 35 minutes or 40 minutes. And my point with Misère is it doesn't. It goes to lots of different places, and you're not, all within the framework of extreme music for the most part, but you're not quite sure ever where it's going to go until you've listened to it, a dozen times or whatever. And bands like Thy Art and I don't know, all the ones that you named, 18 Visions, so on and so forth, tend to have a far more formulaic approach to what they do, and it's that bores me. It's not the sound in and of itself. It's just if you played me a Thy Art Is Murder song, I'd be like, yeah, I'm into this. But it's when you get 10 put together on one album that I get a bit bored.
Fair enough.
You seem really despondent and annoyed.
No, I get it. I mean, I agree. Yeah, they're not the most dynamically interesting of bands.
Yeah. Whereas I think this is, within this field, a very dynamic album.
Yeah,
within
pretty
what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair thing to say. I just think, like I say, when you get bits that it's all well and good going, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, but often I kind of want them to work. And I think, for example, the datedness of the way that the electronics sound quite dated, I'm almost like, you should have probably waited until you could do that properly.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's
because
fair.
Actually the shit you do when you're just heads down, like you're a good metalcore band.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm sort of like, hey, like a good metalcore band's not going to fucking set the world alight or anything, but I enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, you can't fucking knock their enthusiasm for trying to do different things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd almost say like I want them to go in that direction even more.
Me too. I think they should.
Yeah, I hope
they should just got to get better at doing it.
Yeah, and I just hope that it will be one of these cases where a few years on the road will hone them into, something. I mean, look at what's happened with Employed and stuff like that. I think most people would agree, there will be some people that disagree, but most people would agree that those records are getting better because they are on the road and honing what they do and so on and so forth. And if that could happen with this band, then it could be something pretty special.
Yeah.
It wasn't, based on the live show that I saw, it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, but it's a debut record, and it is a very good one, I think, overall.
So there you go. That is the debut album from Misère. It's called Sermon. It's out now for all you metalcore kids. Our last record comes from Frail Body. The album is called Brief Memoriam. It is a debut album from the Rockford, Illinois punks who are bringing back Screamo. Reclaim Screamo, Remfry, for the people. This is on Death Wish, this record.
Sign of quality.
So probably going to be good, right?
Yep. Spoiler alert. It is.
Yeah. So,
it's fucking great.
This is an album, as I said, a debut record.
Very quickly. They do call it an LP, blah, 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 blah. It's only 21 minutes, though.
21 minutes and it's 7
tracks.
songs, right?
Is it an LP? Is it an EP?
Well,
Just got my pen.
Yeah, it's still an album. I think if they're saying it's an album, it's an album.
I mean, they're saying
Bad Witch
it's an
is an album. Well, that's longer than 20 minutes.
Which one?
Bad Witch by Nine Inch Nails. That's only...
Oh, but that's an EP. Well, we've had this discussion already. It's an EP. Sorry, Trent, it's an EP.
Fair enough. Remfry, I brought this in.
You did? I'm very glad you did.
It's good, innit?
Fucking great.
Screamo. Shout out Simon Young for inventing Screamo, the godfather of Screamo. It's a good name. And again, it feels like we have had a lot of records over the past month or so where we have mentioned a similar type of band that we both loved from a certain period, that being the late 90s into the early noughties, from the worlds of hardcore and emo.
Talking about Hopes For, Planes Mistaken for Stars.
Yeah. Small
Thursday
Brown,
to a degree.
Thursday, Small Brown Bike.
Victory Records.
Victory Records. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
That's a label, not a band.
Yeah, that kind of label. Jade Tree.
Jade Tree, yes.
Although that's, again, Revelation Records. All Revelation bands. Great days. And it kind of turned into something else for a really, really long time. and
Turned into something quite poo for quite a long time.
yeah, both metalcore and emo, screamo, whatever you want to call it. You know, the boom years, the kind of the big mainstream years, have turned those genre names into, you know, emo, screamo, metalcore, have been turned into dirty words. They're kind of derided, dirty words. They're kind of thought of in a lot of ways, or they were kind of, if you go back about 4 years, to me, they were thought of in the same way as like new metal was thought in about 2008.
Even like I got the promo for this and it was described as screamo, and I was like, oh, you're like, you don't want to describe yourself as screamo in this day and age. Although, but then this is screamo, but just done really well. Yeah, you know.
Again, but again, so evocative of that period of time. Tonally, what's a song where it just starts off? I think Your Death Makes Me Wish Heaven Was Real, the second track on the record, which is fucking
great title.
Absolutely great title. Absolutely
great song.
Brilliant song, and has got this like kind of jangly guitar part that sounds so much like it could have been taken out of a, like I say, a Planes Mistaken for Stars album. I got this and I heard it straight away, and the day I heard it I messaged you and I went, I think we have to cover this now. Even though it was a busy week, I went, I think we have to cover this. I think we have to.
And initially I was like, and I'm really glad you did.
Yeah. So you like this, right?
I really like it. It's
Go on
really
then.
Good. Well, I mean, yeah, you mentioned Your Death Makes Me Wish Heaven Was Real. Well, no, let's just start with the first track, Pastel. So like there's the brief bit of like unplugged electric guitar being played, and it's like, oh, well, this is nice. Oh, I like tune my ear to this, and then it just fucking comes out of the tracks and just in a flurry of like white noise, and the screams that come from Lowell Schaefer are white hot, searing, throat shredding screams.
If you can imagine an angrier sounding Blood Brothers.
Oh yeah, great shout. Yeah, really good.
Because the guys from the Blood Brothers were almost a bit stingy hipster when they weren't like it's kind of a bit singy, even though they had those weird sort of high pitched voices. This is that hype, but like proper screeching, screaming, like furious. This is an angry record. Like don't be fooled by going screamo. Is it going to be like Finch or something? Nah, this is abrasive, abrasive, acidic sounding record.
But it is. But it's you know, it's 21 minutes long, 21 and a half minutes long. But it also has a lot. It has a lot of depth to it, and it is, you know, again, dynamic. There are clean guitar parts in it, as you say. You know, there are parts where everything just sort of cuts out, and it is just quite quiet. And there are sung melodic parts, and the sung melodic parts are really good. Yeah, which is not always the case with screamo bands, because you know sometimes they can scream really well but can't really sing. That's not the case here at all. They sound absolutely brilliant singing, and it reminds me of the 2000s, and I like it. I really, really like it. I don't know. Take over.
Take over. All right.
I really like it. It's really good.
Yeah. No. I mean, to me, again, you know, with the risk of kind of repeating ourselves again and again and again, having got Sea Space Cowboy and having got what else did we Renounced, and you know, having got this as well, I'm really glad that there seems to be a school of bands, a school of young bands who are interested in, you know, looking past the last few years and actually taking influence from something that happened a long time ago, and not even just going, oh, you know, the commercial, you know, wasn't it great when Killswitch Engage got big? Wasn't it great when, you know, Thursday got big? And actually going, no, we can go before that. We can go to a point, you know, in the kind of late 90s where this was really super underground music. And I think it shows because none of those bands have any kind of
commercial appeal.
They don't have any commercial appeal.
Thursday was probably the closest.
Yeah,
and you know, it didn't really happen.
No, not really, no. And
they got signed to Island, but then they released War All the Time, which is an album which I think has been reappraised these days.
It's a great record.
Yeah, I've not really gone back to it, but
I always loved it. Always loved it.
Fair. I'm a full collapse guy, but you know, there was a big thing around. I mean, I remember Kerrang were definitely like, oh, Thursday are going to be the next big band. They probably compare them to Nirvana at some point, and it just didn't happen at all.
Well, it was at the drive-in sort of opened the floodgates for a lot of those bands.
That's
I think
right, yeah.
It was at the drive-in, and then it was this kind of polymorphous thing, wasn't it, that you didn't really know what emo and screamo and hardcore and because there was no, you were talking before about the formulaic nature of what those scenes became. It soon became very clear what you were. If you're an emo band, soon became very, was you were basically a pop punk band as far as I could tell, but with makeup on. And if you were a screamo band, you were I don't know. I mean, who was on? Yeah, well, Finch were one, weren't they? Finch were like kind of emo, but they had a bit of shouting or whatever. And if you're a metalcore band, it was Killswitch Engage and it was Atreyu and those sort of bands. Whereas pre that, it was like, okay, so there's Thursday and there's 100 Reasons and there's Rival Schools and there's almost Lost Prophets for a little bit as well.
Early Lost
Funeral
Prophets,
for a
definitely.
Friend.
Yeah.
And, there were a lot of, and then you were getting bands like the Icarus Line and Dillinger, and people didn't, and Converge as well, and nobody really knew. And Poison the Well, were Poison the Well a metalcore band, or they got an emo bits in it? They're kind of screamo. Grade, Grade have got metal riffs, but they kind of sound like a traditional sort of hardcore punk band, like a bit like more like a Veil or this Fat Wreck thing. But then they've got singing, they've got screaming on top of it, and all of it felt like
a very fluid hybrid that you couldn't go, we can neatly put you into that box, this box, and Thrice box.
Yeah.
Not Thrice. As essentially.
Although ironically, Thrice did get their own.
Ironically, Thrice did. But it was a far more kind of fluid is the word that I want to keep going back to.
Yeah.
It's a difficult scene to describe, isn't it?
It is a difficult scene to describe, but I think what's cool about it is that you're now looking at it, and I feel the same way about Frail Body alongside Harm's Way and Code Orange and Vane and See You Space Cowboy and even Knocked Loose. Like, we've not talked about that. Like, people love that Knocked Loose record.
They really do.
Like, they love that Knocked Loose record.
Yeah.
And it's quite a good record. I think it's a good record. Like, you know what I mean? I gave it a good review and a good score in Hammer. I've not really gone back to it, to be perfectly honest, because I think I think most
of the releases we've covered on this record that are related to it are better.
Yeah, me too.
On this podcast, to be honest.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
sorry. Gift from God would be another one. And, they do all seem to share this kind of kindred spirit, like reverence for that period of time. And I think that's really cool. And this record definitely does that. Oh, yeah. It's definitely got that in there.
It's really evocative of that time.
Really, really evocative. And again, like you say, when I saw it, because I looked at the press notes, and I was like, oh, you're a screamo band, are you? And I thought, oh, God. And then I saw it was on Death Wish, and I thought, well, okay, it's going to be something more than that. Yeah. And I maybe kind of thought it was going to be more emo. Like, don't be fooled. This is, like you say, when this is heavy,
it's blistering.
This record is really, really, really harsh.
White hot is the, I was going to say word.
Phrase. I would say it is, in a week when we had Swans and Misère, a sort of very heavy metalcore band, and we also had Stake. At its most blistering, this is the most sonically like, I get out of anything this week.
Yes. At its peak sonicness, yes.
Yeah.
Not overall, but yes.
Not overall, but I think so. Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah, I really love it, and I implore.
Dear me. It's called.
Implore people to go out and listen to it. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should listen to it. It's called A Brief Memoriam. It's by Frail Body. It's a debut record. It's screamo, and it's good. It's out right now. And that's it. We will be back next week. We were going to do trade-off, but, it's been a pretty mental few weeks. So we will probably bring that back in 3 weeks' time, because we're going to be doing...
we are going to be doing catch-up shows.
We're doing a couple of catch-up shows. Just as a reminder, Remfry's going to have Brand of Sacrifice by God Hand.
I've heard that record a couple of times already.
Have you? Oh dear. What did you give me? Don't even know, do you?
I can't fucking remember.
You fucking scumbag.
You scumbag.
Yeah, so anyway, next week, here's what's going to happen. Next week, Remfry is going to pick 10 records and they will be his catch-up records.
We've decided a little change to the catch-up thing. We'll do it so that I have a week, and then Steve has a week, and we'll just do 2 catch-up episodes.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
because we could be playing catch-up for the next fucking 3 months if we really wanted to, but we don't. And then we'll probably go into we'll start doing Christmassy bits and
Christmassy bits and bobs. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. That's the world's angriest guitar player.
Oh, right.
Love that guy.
I was wondering what you're doing. Yeah. Oh, that guy's amazing.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you like it when I just did it when he hits his own hand.
Yes, I do. I was wondering what you were doing because it looked very auspicious. Auspicious? I don't know.
John, you dropped your guitar. I don't give a shit. This fucking wrist is doing my pissing head in.
He's not even trying to play anything that hard.
What's he playing? This is an illusion. Save me forever.
I think it's Wonderwall. I don't know.
No.
But yeah.
He's wearing a Death t-shirt at one point as well, that guy. Go look him up, the world's angriest guitar player.
Oh, it's very funny. Yeah. So that's next week, right?
What, the world's angriest guitar player?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's next week. We'll be doing Remfry's catch-up show. Thanks very much to the guys at musicism.net. You can go over there if you want to improve yourself as a guitarist. and get 25% off your courses when you put the code RIOT in the checkout in capitals. We'll see you next
Riot,
week.
1 R, not several R's.
Riot.
Riot.
We'll see you next week for more larfs. Bye.